Greetings, children, and welcome to my chamber. My name is Rotherick Gastblood, and I'm your host of Tales from the Dark Chamber. This week, we have a great show for you. Tales to make your skin crawl. Each week, my chambermate and I read a scary tale that we found on the internet, or perhaps left under some corpse. Either way, we think you're going to like it, and we're just dying for you to hear it. So sit right back, light a candle, and let's have a ghoul evening.
Oh, hey, Rotherick. I was beginning to wonder when you get here. Everything okay?
Oh, certainly. Just spending some quality time with old friends. Good for the soul.
That's nice.
Yes, indeed. Oh, and I met someone new today.
Oh, really?
Yes, a nice lady ghoul.
Oh, wonderful. Tell me all about it.
Ah, yes. Her name is Elizabeth, and we met at the old cemetery. You know the one, just on the other side of town.
Uh-huh.
The one with the lovely, creepy Victorian headstones all strewn about.
Yeah, the one where all the ravens are?
That's right. We met whilst I was digging up an old friend of mine.
Oh, yeah? Who?
Edgar P.
Who?
Edgar P. You know, Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, yeah. You know Edgar Allan Poe?
Did. But that's not the interesting part.
Uh-huh.
I was just hitting his coffin when I heard the most lovely coughing and wheezing.
Oh, yeah?
I looked up, and there she was, drenched in blood,
Ooh.
carrying a hatchet, looking down upon me.
Huh?
It was love at first slice.
You mean love at first sight?
Oh, no.
Huh?
She took a swing at me, missed me altogether, and fell into the grave. She dropped the hatchet right on top of Edgar, who didn't seem too pleased with that at all.
Yeah, imagine.
And I picked her up.
Wow.
She grinned, showing me her sharp, pointed teeth. I looked into her black, dead eyes, and I must say, I was quite taken.
Oh, sounds lovely. Well, in this case, I reckon the fates were kind to you. You met someone new.
Yes, I suppose. But I don't believe in fate. But this would be the closest.
Ah, lovely. You know Valentine's Day is approaching. You could get her...
A lovely heart.
Yeah, something like that, I suppose. Anyhow, this does coincide with the theme of our story tonight. So tonight's story is about a fateful meeting between two warriors who have a common enemy. They ponder their fate and faith while confronting their worst fears. All by chance, our heroes play out a series of fateful events. The Will of the Fates. An entry for Red Nova Tyrant's Cruel Fate Writing Contest. Fate has dealt me the card number 8. Strength. Draylen fled in the cover of night, the clank of his armor bouncing crudely off the walls of the decrepit stronghold. Tall, broken pieces of the misshapen bodies loomed all around him like a stone forest. The darkness was a veil to his eyes. He knew the path during the day, but now it became a maze seemingly closing in on him. Even so, he couldn't stop. To stop was death. He narrowly managed to avoid a jagged column. The maneuver made him cringe, reminding him of the wound at his side. He gripped at the deep gash in his armor, where beneath it had reached near his ribs. A sharp wheezing tore through the air behind him, sending Draylen's heart into the depths. It was still in pursuit, and worse, drawing near. He could hear its claws and rough breathing, the sound of thick rock crumbling with ease in its path. It was eager to taste his flesh. He didn't know how long he could withstand this dwindling chase. Adrenaline filled his veins, but to what extent? He dreaded to think what would happen if, without warning, he stumbled, losing his footing. The world became a blur, and he was sent rolling downhill. Each painful tumble mocked his labored body, as if taking a turn to spit into his wounds. Finally, he crashed into something hard. More agony emerged from all over while his mind was still spinning. He felt a cold liquid from his temple. Blood? When he reached the area, he realized it wasn't his own. Instead, a foul smell burned his nostrils, and to his horror, it belonged to a corpse. It was one of his fallen brethren, split down the middle like a burlap sack, his innards coating him. There were two more piled near. He opened his mouth to let out a shrill, but a hand clamped over it. Draylen's heart nearly leapt out of his chest. A voice hushed him calmly. His widened eyes were drawn to find a man veiled in the shadows. Where had he come from? He glanced further up and realized he had knocked against a rusted door. The sound of the creature's guttural wheezing grew closer. Without hesitation, he was reeled in by the man, who quickly slammed the door behind him. The pounding of his pursuer came to a halt. The two men sat in silence, each stifling a heavy breath pumped by fear. They listened as the unholy beast could be heard sniffing in the air, searching for its prey. Its breathing was strange, as if struggling to earn it, coiled with fluid and gurgling. Draylen's lungs burned, the air tearing at his mouth for release, but he dared not let go. The claws outside scraped closer, no doubt, drawn by the corpses just a hair's length away. All that separated them from it was the metal door. Might as well have had been cloth. Suddenly, a distant rock fell with a clatter. The creature let out another loud wheeze and took off in the direction. Once its pounded fading, Drayden let loose the air, inhaling greedily. The man did the same. "That was too close for comfort," Drayden whispered. The man hushed him again and rose. He walked further in, gesturing him to follow. Reluctantly, Drayden got up, wincing in the process, and proceeded in tow. This area, it was a long corridor built within the mountain. It was a tight and run down, filled with broken pots, torn sacks, and other items haphazardly strewn about. He stumbled, trying to follow. "Hey!" he called out into the darkness. "Is this place truly safe? Can we trust it to hold?" The air was silent, except for the moan of the corridor. It stretched ahead into seemingly endless darkness. "Hello!" he called out. Again, silence was returned. Draylen winced as he pushed himself forward. He continued with a hand out, hoping to avoid any future collisions. Finally, the corridor expanded into an open chamber. He could vaguely make out a throne at the center, tables layered throughout. Draylen flinched as a sudden spark of light appeared in front of him. The man from earlier had lit a torch. Now visible, Draylen studied him in the light. He had a well-built body with tanned skin. His hair was quite dark and lengthy and settled at his shoulders. Leather hide adorned his chest, leaving his arms bare. Draylen noted a bloodied bandage wrapped tightly around one leg. "You're, Drayden, I see," Draylen grunted. He could now see the man's limp as he drew closer. His wild hair fell around his stern eyes. He nodded. "My hope is in Hassop. But yes, it lies in Direct," he responded in a strong accent. Draylen smirked. "You speak my country's language pretty well for a barbarian." The man scoffed. "How can a man fight against his friend without speaking his words?" "We're not friends," Draylen replied, cringing as he settled against the wall. "We just happen to have a common enemy in our lands. Besides, it's worked fine for me. The Dyretan man leaned the torch against the wall and squatted to check on Draylen's wound. Draylen attempted to push his hand away but received a glare and sat back. The man revealed a small pouch and pinched out what appeared to be dust. "What's that?" Draylen asked. "Something that will help you," he replied, spitting into his hands. He lathered the dust until it became pastry. Once satisfied, he applied it to the wound. Draylen scowled at the sharp burn it produced. "Easy," he shot. "So, what do I call you, friend?" "Tyron." Draylen chuckled. "Even your names are bloody ridiculous." "Name's Draylen." Tyron grunted at the remark. "You asked if it was safe. It is, if we do not draw them here." "Good to know. So I take it you're the only survivor of your group?" Draylen asked. "I saw a few of you lined up before everything went to shit." He nodded solemnly. "Many of my brothers were lost." "Yeah, same. The corrupted, cursed creatures. Just one slaughtered 10 of us. Can you believe we were proud of that? Of killing one? Then a fucking wave of them came out of nowhere, overtook us with ease. Makes you wonder what the point even is." "The point, my friend, we stood our ground. To challenge them is to prove that man will not watch idly and die. Unchecked, it would be our villages and homes. That's a victory." "Yeah," Draylen replied. "What good is victory if you're not alive to celebrate?" "We are alive. But for how long? Look at us. Either can barely walk, let alone fight." Tyron sighed. "We must be strong and give our faith in the fates." "The fates?" Draylen spat to the side. "The only thing I'll give them is a piece of me arse." "Are the Ch'uman not strong with the fates in your lands?" Tyron asked. "Did your enemies not crumble with ease because of Lady Rota? Her power fueled your people with good fortune, yes?" "My people have faith, but not me. I've always made my own luck. The fates never had anything to do with it. Cocksuckers, all of them. Men can only survive on the will of the fates." "The will of the fates," Draylen scoffed. "You want to see their will? Look out there. It's splayed all over the fucking battlefield. Was it their will that allowed our brothers to die for nothing? For us to become nothing but fodder?" Tyron's eyes fell to the ground. "Yeah, that's what I thought," Draylen continued. "Out here, you have nothing to trust. Nothing but the men at your side, the blade in your hand, and your wits up here," he said, tapping his temple. Tyron shook his head. "I trust Fortudov's strength, just as I trust in all the crowns of fate. I know my faith is being tested, even now. Lady Fortuna's presence is strong in these lands. Perhaps that is why Lady Rota abandoned your Fuck off already," Draylen interrupted. "Just let me be." Tyron nodded and walked over to another part of the wall and sat. Draylen awoke drenched in sweat. The echo of screams lingered in his mind. He could still see their torn faces frozen in terror and agony, feel their mutilated bodies pressed up against his. He glanced over to see the low light from the torch and rendered a sigh of relief. He saw Tyron further down on the wall, propped up against it. His head was low as he produced a light snore. Draylen's eyes fell to his wound. Whatever remedy the Dyretan had used was clearly working. The bleeding stopped. He slowly rose, still feeling a sharp sting. He grabbed the torch and blew lightly to add life to the flames. Satisfied, he took the time to examine the chamber. It was mostly jagged rock at the ceiling from the mountain, but the stonework began at the walls and made up the flooring. He noted the seals draped. The symbol displayed a wheel with several letters inscribed in it. It was Rota of Fortune, the Chumans' symbol, their power behind their good fortune, their fate. The image made his stomach churn. He turned in disgust, noting the tables from earlier, and approached them. They were covered with parchments of the terrain. He saw the stronghold's position with toppled pieces representing their forces. Tracing the map, he saw where the enemy had been annotated. The gate. He didn't realize how close they were to it. Draylen had been among the third line of defense. The last was the sixth. Beyond that was the captain's position. At that moment, his eyes sparked. Where was the captain? Or the other guard sergeants? If this was their last stand, shouldn't their remains be about? They would have clearly been seen, or better yet smelt by now. He recalled the bodies that he had seen near the door. Was it them? Possibly, but he didn't recollect the captain among them. That had to at least been the guard sergeants. If he wasn't dead out there and he wasn't inside here, then... His eyes traced the map. Immediately, they grew wider. There was a back way, an escape route. Bastard, he whispered under his breath. He hobbled as fast as he could around the chamber as he scanned the area. Where was it? It appeared to be one solid room except for the entrance. The mess pots and crates spilled into the space as well. He settled on the large throne at the center. Couldn't be, he whispered. He approached it with haste. It was made of stone, partly cracked, but for the most part in good shape. He could picture the captain in the chair, fancying himself over the others as they argued over strategy. Being the captain, he wouldn't privy anyone else a seat in it. That was the type of man he was. Draylen studied the chair with his fingers, combing every inch. The captain wasn't the type to place himself in a hole trapped. Not without having... His finger grazed something extending under the armrest. A backup plan. He pressed it, and a deep rumbling filled the air. A gust rushed out from the back of the throne. He coughed and glanced back to see a square opening on the ground. The torch revealed a set of stairs descending. He found it. "What are you doing?" Tyron said suddenly. His voice startled Draylen. "What is this?" Tyron asked. "What did you do?" "Don't you see, my friend?" Draylen said excitedly. "It's a way out. We can get out of this bloody place." Tyron shook his head, backing away. "No, this is not good. We cannot go down there." Draylen gave him a look of disbelief. "Are you mad, Dyreton? Don't you want to get out of here? Don't you want to leave?" "I do, but this is not the way." "Really? And what's your plan then?" "We wait." Draylen scoffed. "Please tell me you jest. This is it? This is your plan? To sit and do nothing?" "Yes." "So you're giving in then?" "No." "Does your plan include food? Because we don't have any, or water. Unless you count that magic dust, we'll die down here." "I leave our well-being to the fates. Lady Fortuna will deliver us." Draylen rolled his eyes. "Not this fucking thing again. Why does you and everyone cling to those fucking fates?" he yelled. Tyron recoiled. "The real question," he began, "is why do you not?" Draylen scoffed again. "What does that matter? Tell me," he pressed. Draylen sighed, running his hand over his shaven hair. "I can never understand it," he started. "How can people even worship them? How can you put trust in beings who do nothing in return? You say you put your hope in the crowns, right?" The man nodded. "Funny, everyone is so quick to kiss their arse, but seem to forget about her. The one who turned her fucking back on us." He was now in the face of Tyron. "Fancied herself the little queen and created those unholy shits to wage war on everything that has a bloody meaning. The same unholy beasts that ransacked our lands, fed on our light, our hope." He choked on his words. Our wives and our children. He stopped to wipe his eyes. You cannot blame the action of one on the many, Tyrant stated. Really? Drayden replied. Are the others any different? What have they done to right this wrong? It was one of their own fucking kind in the first place. And what have they done? Nothing. Instead, we have to fend for ourselves, dying by the thousands. They're no better than that wench. And the mucks like you still pray to them. As he paused to collect himself. The fates have been nothing but a thorn in mankind's arse since the dawning. Only blind sheep keep on trusting them, not me, 'cause I know what you'll get in return if you do. Silence, suffering, death. Cocksuckers, that's what I think of the damn fates. They can eat mine and some. Tyrant was speechless. For a long minute, the burning of the torch filled the void in the air. I'm sorry, Tyrant finally spoke. You have clearly suffered loss. I understand your pain. I too have lost my family, my wife, and 2 sons. I thought Lady Fortuna wanted me to use my anger to harness her strength, but I was wrong. The truth, I am a coward. I rushed into battle and I found I was afraid. When the darkness attacked, I fled. I left my brothers to die. He paused. This is why I must atone. I believe this is my test. To listen. To wait. That is Fortuna's true power. True strength is patience. We must wait. He placed a hand on Draylen's shoulder, but it was pushed away. Atone on your own, Draylen stated coldly. You can stay here. I want to live. No, I cannot let you leave, Tyrant stated. Let me leave? You may draw them here. It is a risk. We must wait patiently. We cannot go against the will of the fates. To do so is death. Draylen threw a punch in the Daritan's face. It felt like he had struck a wall. Still, the blow managed to catch the large brute off guard. It wasn't enough, though, as the man quickly retaliated with a backhand that sent Draylen flying to the ground. The torch fell from his hands, rolling into a flurry of light. Never go against the will of the fates, Tyrant said, as he slowly approached Draylen. Draylen's ears were ringing. A sharp pain pulsed from his lip. He looked to see Tyrant reaching for him. Quickly, he launched a dirty kick to his groin. The giant howled in pain, toppling to the ground. Draylen took advantage, mounting him and rained down heavy blows to the face. Here's what I think of your cocksucking fates. Don't you understand, you bloody lout? We need to get out of here while we can. Tyrant reeled his hands free and grabbed his attacker by the shoulders and rendered a headbutt. Draylen's vision became a flash of black and white. He moaned in agony, rolling over while gripping his head. It felt like he had rammed it against 10 metal doors, and then some. He braced for another blow, but it never came. He glanced up and saw Tyrant standing over him. What was he waiting for? This was his chance. Draylen's vision finally cleared. In the torchlight, he noticed the man's eyes were not on him, but beyond. He could see the fear in them. That's when he heard it. A guttural wheezing. Immediately, Draylen's eyes shot towards the corridor, bathed in the shadows. He could hear the clank of pots crunching and sacks being slid. It was one of them. Their scuffle must have drawn it inside. He quickly scanned the room, noting a fallen table. Take cover, quick, he whispered to Tyrant. Tyrant nodded and scanned the area until settling behind some crates. Draylen made his way to a fallen table. Just as he knelt behind it, the wheezing grew louder. It had reached the chamber. He swallowed hard. They were trapped. The torch teased its irregular figure on the walls. He listened as its heavy steps brought it further in. A foul smell accompanied it. It was beyond rancid, like soured fish bathing in chit. No doubt a blend between its own odor and its banquet of flesh. It was hard to tell which he'd prefer over the other. Regardless, He choked back a wave of bile that reached his throat. The creature navigated aimlessly. Draylen peeked around the table to catch a glimpse of its tar-like skin as it began to turn his way. He quickly reeled back. What was their next move? It wasn't a big area for it to move in, or for them either. He could hear it make its approach on his side. His heart pounded like a madman. He was sure it could be heard against his armor. Draylen noted a crate nearby and realized he had no choice. If he didn't try for it, he'd be spotted anyway. He took a few deep breaths and crawled. He fought to keep his armor from clanking, but it was easier in his mind. The creature continued to stir around in the background. Finally, just as he had reached the crate, his foot scraped. It growled and shot for the table. He could hear it launch without effort, causing it to splinter. Draylen fought to stifle his breathing as it combed the area. It turned its attention to the air, sniffing once again. Draylen attempted to find another sliver of salvation. He knows his options are waning. His eyes landed on Tyron, still safe behind his own crate. His gaze was clearly on the creature until they locked onto his. Draylen could hear the wheezing morph into another growl. It realized their presence. His eyes fell upon the throne. The escape path. How could he have forgotten about it? The claws started to make a beeline to his position. Could he make it to the hole? Even if he did, would he be able to outrun it if it followed him down? Suddenly, an idea dawned on him. He had little time to dwell on its success. His gaze met with Tyron's again and rendered a nod to him which puzzled the man. Instantly, Draylen took off. The creature let out an ear-piercing wheeze that became a howl. "Dyreden!" Draylen shouted. "Follow my lead, now!" The creature launched itself with an insane speed. Draylen narrowly dodged it, throwing himself to the side as it slammed into the crate. Its momentum sent it into a wild roll, barreling into the wall. Large chunks of rocks were sent hurtling. Without question, Draylen grabbed the torch. Tyron appeared behind him. "What is your plan?" he asked. "That dust. Do you have any more?" The creature finally recovered. It moved with a sickening crack, turning its form in their direction. Its fluid-like wheeze eased into another growl. Tyron's fingers fumbled to reach his pouch. "Hurry!" Draylen hissed. "It's coming again!" Tyron tore open the sack, pinching out the dust. The creature posed itself for another pounce. Tyron threw the dust into the torch, sparking the flames to leap out just as it started to move. Instantly, it halted in its tracks, roaring from the brightness. Draylen held the fire out, waving it to keep it at bay. The creature wheezed in contempt, pacing and backing off with each wave. "What now?" Tyron asked over his shoulder. "That flame's strength won't last long." "I'm aware of that," Draylen retorted without taking his eyes away. Now in the light, the abomination could be fully seen. Its body was large, rivaling a horse. Its shape was off-putting, to say the least. It was obese in some areas, thick-coated with a web of veins, yet muscular in others, mainly from its beefy arms. Its head shrank deep into its torso, absent a neck. It was hard to believe it once had been a person. The eyes were embedded deep into its sockets and accentuated its skull seemingly on the verge of tearing through the skin. Draylen noted the golden hilt of the sword wedged in its back, the one he had lost after it clawed him. "Didn't think we'd meet so soon again," he said under his breath. Its mouth was like a crater stretching down to his chest. It rendered another wheeze, revealing the intricate rows of daggers. Draylen noted the flames dwindle. "Give me the rest of the dust," he stated, reaching his hand back. "What are you?" "Just give it, and head towards the throne. Be ready. On my mark, move out of the way." Reluctantly, Tyron obliged. Once in hand, Draylen slowly backed up. The creature began to make stronger advances as the flames got lower. Draylen tore the bag with his teeth and began dumping it on the ground. "All right. Be ready," he whispered. He hoped this worked. The flame finally settled into low embers. At that, the creature growled deeply. "Now!" Draylen screamed. He threw the torch down at the dust just as it launched itself. Once again, he narrowly evaded. The dust ignited into a bright blaze, stunning the creature as it propelled onto the wall. It fell to the ground, thrashing blindly. Small bushes of fire still lapped at its skin. Draylen didn't waste time and quickly bolted to it. He ducked, avoiding the arm it swung. His eyes were on the prize, the sword wedged in it. He attempted to reach it but was forced to evade another wild swing. Finally, he found an opening and jumped for it. The handle was still hot, singeing his flesh, but he held on, pulling with all his strength. The creature shook violently, throwing him off. Yet he glanced at his hand with the sword in it and smiled. The creature released another loud wheeze. This pulled him from his minor triumph. It wasn't over yet. He found his legs and made his way near it. "Over here, you bloody bastard," he yelled, clanking the sword on the ground. "Don't you want to finish the job?" It quickly turned its head towards him. He could see its eyes were charred over. He hit the sword harder. "That's it. Come on." It growled again and scrambled with haste towards him, hatred boiling for him. Perfect, Draylen thought. The creature stumbled, nearly falling completely into the open trap door. Its torso was halfway through, but it managed to catch itself with one arm. Draylen swiftly closed the distance and rammed the sword deep into its head from behind. It cried out in agony, but it didn't die. It kept thrashing, fighting to pull itself up. He struggled to keep its body pinned. He could feel the beast's resistance increase. At the corner of his eyes, he noticed Tyron watching. "Dyreton!" he screamed. "Help me hold it!" The man was frozen. His gaze was full of terror. "Dyreton, I cannot hold this beast alone!" Draylen could feel the blade tearing through its flesh, providing more leverage to the creature. "Tyron!" This pulled the man's eyes finally upon him. "Help me, damn it!" The man sprang into action. His hands finally wrapped around the sword, pushing it down with greater force. "Hold it!" Draylen ordered, releasing his own grip. Tyron nodded but struggled to hold it steady. Even with his strength, the creature was too much. Draylen rushed over to the throne. His fingers fumbled for the switch until he found it and pressed. The door rumbled with life and began closing. However, the creature stopped it with its brace hand. "Cut it!" Draylen yelled. "Hurry and cut the damn thing!" Tyron yanked the sword up and began hacking away at its arm. Each blow slowly ate at the flesh, accompanied by an anguished squeal from its owner. Finally, he rendered the final blow. The door slammed, cutting off its whimpering head. Draylen sighed in relief. His heart was beating at full steam. He fell to his knees. They did it. Tyron began laughing uncontrollably and fell on his back. "What's so funny?" Draylen asked. "Don't you see, friend? This was my test. This was a step to cure me of my cowardice. And I succeeded. I faced the darkness." Draylen chuckled a bit, finding his footing. "You see," Tyron continued, "I was patient all these years, and Lady Fortuna came through. They are for mankind. This is the reason, my friend, why we must wait here. Salvation will find us in due time. To go against the fate is death." Tyron attempted to rise, but winced in pain. He chuckled. "My friend," he said, holding out a hand, "can you help me up? I am sore." Draylen's footsteps carried over to him. Tyron waited for a smile. However, it soon faded when he heard grunting. What? Draylen, what are—" he started to ask, but before he could finish, Draylen slammed a large chunk of rock onto his head. A loud crunch filled the air. The Dyreton's body twitched erratically. Draylen cringed as he lifted the now bloodied rock up once more, slamming it again. Tyron stopped twitching. "Sorry, friend," Draylen said through heavy breaths, "but I'll wait no more, especially for one of those things to return." He hobbled to his feet and made his way to the throne again. He pressed the button to open the trapdoor. The creature's body tumbled through, crackling as it descended the steps. Draylen chuckled. It took a moment to compose himself. However, a noise threw his heart back into the depths. Footsteps. They came from below. It was still alive, but how? His frantic eyes scanned the area for something to grab. He noted the sword near Tyron, but the shadow of the beast was emerging too quickly. He grabbed the first thing next to him, a rock, and held it up. As it emerged, Draylen stood in awe. The rock fell from his hands. It was the captain. The nobleman was a sight for sore eyes. He had rounded features with a face plastered with fatigue. The tall man donned red armor without a blemish, decorated with a white cape. "Captain Woller," Draylen said. The man produced a warm smile. "Soldier, I'm surprised you managed to survive." It wasn't easy, sir." Draylen made a chest salute. Tears formed in his eyes. "I'm so glad you made it, sir." Captain Woller nodded. "Carry on." Draylen wiped his eyes. "Are you the only one left?" the captain asked. "I am, sir. It was only me and that Daritan." Captain Woller glanced over to Tyron's body. He noted the sword and picked it up. "Well, it's all over now, son. Rest assured." Draylen approached the trap door. "Are reinforcements here, sir? Are they down?" His words were cut short. He glanced down and saw the bloodied tip of the sword through his stomach. Sorry, lad," Captain Woller said softly. "Can't have word out how I abandoned my men to die for my own survival. To think this hole was a blessing and a curse. The path out had long caved in, and I was trapped. However, Lady Rota smiled on me as she sent you here." He reeled out the blade. Draylen coughed out blood. He fell forward, passing through the hole. He plunged, feeling every crunch of the stairs along the way. Captain Woller wiped the blood off the sword. Immediately after, a loud thunder erupted from the corridor. A group of soldiers stormed the chambers with swords out. They halted upon seeing. "Sir!" one of the men stated, producing a salute that sparked a ripple from the others. "Reinforcements have arrived. Are you hurt?" Captain Woller waved them at ease. "I'm fine, Lieutenant. Perfect timing." "Are you the only survivor, sir?" Captain Woller paused to glance back at the trapdoor. "Yes, no one else made it, I'm afraid. Let us leave this place. I've been without fresh air for too long." "Yes, sir. Everyone, fall back." As the horde exited, Captain Woller noted the sound of metal still lingering in the air. It was accompanied by grunting and coughing. He turned and realized it came from the trapdoor. He sighed and walked to the throne and pressed the button to seal the door. Well, folks, that's our story tonight. Rotherick and I hope you enjoyed it. We sure had a great time bringing it to you, and we really appreciate you listening. Tune in next week when we bring you another chilling tale from the Dark Chamber. And just a note, if you're an aspiring author and you want your story read here on Tales from the Dark Chamber, send us a note at talesfromthedarkchamber@gmail.com. If it creeps old Rotherick out enough, we'll air it. And subscribe to our podcast for notification of our next new episode, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Tales from the Dark Chamber and follow us on Instagram or Twitter. If you want your story read for your own use, or you just want to have it, check out my website at woodygvoiceover.net. You can order there, or you can find me on Upwork as Woody G. And again, thank you for listening tonight.